בשמיא נד קדשמק תהיה מלכותך דאוי צוויינק אייקנת בשמיא
ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Shabbat shalom to everyone out there. Hopefully you're having a great Shabbat. I'd like, before we start out tonight, I pray for each one of you that you may receive this word tonight. If it's not for you, that you at least share it to somebody else that you know would be grateful to hear from. And if you like this, I also ask you to make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you click that notification button below, so that way you get notifications each time that a message comes out. And as you can know, this time that the time did change. So with that being said, if you had that notification, you would have known that I had just came alive. So but hopefully you guys had a blessed week. Remember, you shall work 6 days, and in the seventh day you shall rest, and make sure you're resting in him. And hopefully you've been blessed through this whole week. If not, go to the Father and pray on it. And this is where we see, with tonight's message with Jacob's ladder, and we'll see how that connection goes in between our prayers that we send up to the Father, and what does he send down. So with that message, as we start tonight, I pray each one of you that you receive this message. So Father, I give you all the honor and glory, Father. I lift each one of you up tonight, Father, that whoever hears this word, that they may receive it, Father, in due time. If it is not for tonight, Father, they will be able to put this to the side. And when they're ready for it, Father, that you will open their eyes and remove the veil from their eyes, Father. And if anybody that's here needing anything, Father, allow the Spirit to talk to them. Allow them to bring it to you, Father, for your grace and glory, Father, that you will make them righteous in you, Father, that they may receive your gifts, whatever it is that they need, and whatever you believe that they need to, Father, because what we believe and what he wants for us is not always the same, Father. So with that being said, if anybody's there needing anything tonight, Father, I lift them up to you, Father, that whatever, if it's healing or it's provision or even grace, Father, allow them to receive it in your time. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen. So tonight's message is titled Jacob's Ladder, and we're going to look into Jacob's ladder and see what it really means. Is it a deeper meaning, or is it just something that we overlook in ourselves? So with that being said, let's take the first look at the first slide. In Genesis 28:10, it starts out and it says, "And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went towards Haran. And he came unto a place, and he stayed the night there, for the sun had gone. And he looked, and he took stones on the place and placed them as his head. And he lay down in that place. And he dreamed, and he behold, a staircase was placed on the earth, its top reaching to the heavens. And behold, the messengers of Elohim were going up and going down on it. And behold, Yahweh stood above it and said, I am Yahweh, the Elohim of your father Abraham, and the Elohim of Isaac. The land of which you are lying, I will give to you and to your seed. And your seed shall be the dust of the earth, and you shall spread to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and your seed. And behold, I will be with you and will guard you in every place in which you may go, and will bring you back to the land, to this land, for I will not forsake you until I have surely done that which I have spoken to you. And Jacob awakened from his sleep and said, Surely Yahweh is in this place, and I did not know. And he was afraid and said, How fearfully is this place? This is not accepting the house, nothing accepting except the house of Elohim, and this is the door to heaven. And Jacob started up early in the morning and took the stone which he had placed at his head, and he placed it as a pillar, and he poured oil on it, on top of it, and he called the name of that place Bel Elet, and yet the name of the city was first Luz. Then Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If Elohim is with me and keeps me in this way which I'm going, and gives to me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and I will return in peace to the house of my father, then Yahweh shall be my Elohim, and this sandstone which I have placed as a memorial pillar, shall become the house of Elohim, and all which you shall give to me, I will tie the tenth to you. So we, as already starting out, we see right here, the tithing being mentioned too, that he gave 1/10 also. So we see how 1/10 came down, and what tithing is being brought, from him. In the classic Torah commentaries offer several interpretations of Jacob's ladder, and that is something that's out there. As you go through and you are actually to look at this, you will notice that there's a lot of different things and aspects of the Jacob's ladder and interpretations. With that being said, this is something that I thought was very interesting, and I hopefully you'll find it interesting too, because some people just believe that that this was just a dream and it was nothing else, and then some believe that the angels were coming down and going up. Well, what does that mean? Was he actually dreaming, or was this an actual prayer that was coming from him going up to the Father? So he was sending prayers up, and the angels were coming down to do God's work. So this is something that we see as a foreshadow that when you pray, your prayers are answered. And maybe not in your time, but in the Father's time, they will be answered, because the Father will send messengers down to do his work and take care of you, whatever you need. So as we continue on, it says, according to the Midrash in Genesis at Rabbath, the ladder signifies the exiles which the Jewish people would suffer before the coming of the Jewish Messiah. First, the angel representing the 70-year exile of Babylon climbed up 70 rugs and then fell down. Then the angel representing the exile of Persia went up a number of steps and fell. And did the angel representing the exile of Greece, only the fourth angel, which represented the final exile of Rome, Edom, whose guardian angel was Esau himself, kept climbing higher and higher into the clouds. Jacob feared that his children would never be free of Esau's dominion, but God assured him that at the end of the days, Edom to the world come falling down. Another interpretation of the ladder keys into the fact that the angels first ascended and then descended. The Midrash explains that Jacob, as a holy man, was always accompanied by angels when he reached the border of the land of Canaan, the future land of Israel. The angels who were assigned to the Holy Land went back up to the heaven, and to the angels assigned to the other lands came down to meet Jacob. When Jacob returned to Canaan, he was greeted by the angels who were assigned to the Holy Land. Yet another interpretation is this: the place at which Jacob stood for the night was in reality Mount Moriah, the future home of the temple in Jerusalem. The ladder therefore signifies the bridge between the heaven and the earth, as prayers and sacrifices offered in the Holy Land of the Holy Temple is soldered a connection between God and the Jewish people. Moreover, the ladder alludes to this giving of the Torah as another connection between heaven and earth. Its interpretation is also significant that the Hebrew word for ladder is Salam, the name of the mountain of which Torah was given, Sinai. The same gematria has the same value as the letters. The Hellenistic Jews, a philosopher Philborn in Alexandria, presented his interpretation of the ladder in the first book of his Dema Similius. There he gives four interpretations which are not mutually exclusive. The angels represent souls descending to and ascending from bodies. Some others consider this to the Philio's clearest reference to the doctrine of the reincarnation. So yes, some believe that, with the Jacob's ladder, this was kind of like a reincarnation dream, and this is where you got some of the religions believe that, once you died, you were going to heaven and you were coming back as a different person. So this is where that theme and theory comes from. For those other religions, they believe that. In the second interpretation, the ladder is the human soul, and angels are God's logi, is pulling the soul up in distress and descending in compassion. In the third view, the dream depicts the ups and downs of the life of the practicer, the virtue of versus sin. So, and in the final, the angels represent the continually changing affairs of men. The hilltop overlooking Israel, the settlement of Bel-El north of Jerusalem that is believed by some to be the site of Jacob's dream, is a tourist destination during the holiday of Sukkot. So this is another one which was very interesting that, that they mentioned, was that during that time, a lot of people like to go on Sukkot to see where, Jacob was Sukkoting, and they would see, because they believed that he was out there and he had his dream, which is also something else is interesting that I thought, one of the other interpretations is, you had the souls of the humans that were being pulled up, and then the descending was the compassion. Also we see, there's the implication of, the soul fighting against, the sin that we cause, or we end up doing, against God, so this was something that is interpreted from Jacob's ladder. And Jesus said in John 1:51, and he said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter ye shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. This statement has been interpreted as the association or implicating Jesus with the mystical ladder, in that Christ bridges the gap between heaven and earth. Jesus represents himself as the reality to which the ladder points, as Jacob saw in a dream, the reunion of heaven and earth. Jesus brought his reunion, metaphorically, the ladder, into reality. Adam Clarke, in the early 19th century methodologist, theologian, and Bible scholar, elaborates that by the angels of God ascending and descending is to be understood that a perpetual intercourse should now be open between heaven and earth through the medium of Christ, who is God manifested in the flesh. Our blessed Lord is represented in this meteorological capacity as the ambassador of God to man, and the angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man is a metaphor taken from the custom of dispatching carriers or messengers from the prince to his ambassadors in a foreign court, and from the ambassador back to the prince. The theme of a ladder to heaven is often used by church fathers. Irenaeus in the 2nd century describes the Christian church as the ladder of ascent to God. In the 3rd century, Origen explains that there are two ladders in the life of a Christian: the ascetic ladder that the soul climbs on the earth by way of a resulting in and increasing in virtue, and the soul's travel after death, climbing up in the heavens toward the light of God. In the 4th century, Gregory Nazianzus speaks on ascending Jacob's ladder by successive steps toward excellence, interpreting the ladder as an ascenic path, which St. Gregory Nazianzus Moses climbed on Jacob's ladder to reach the heavens, where he entered the tabernacle not made with hands, thus giving the ladder a clear mystical meaning. The ascetic interpretation is found also in the St. John Chrysostom, who writes, and so clearly mystical meaning, and so mounting as it were by steps, let us get to heaven by Jacob's ladder. For the ladder seems to me to signify in a riddle by the vision of a gradual ascent by means of virtue, by which it is possible for us to ascend from earth to heaven, not using material steps, but improvement in correction of manners. Jacob's ladder, as an analogy for the spiritual ascent of life, enjoyed wide influence thanks to the classical work of the Ladder of Divine Ascent by John Clickus. So, one also believes that with the Jacob's ladder, these are like our steps to the righteousness that we, if you become in Christ and you have Christ in you and you've received him and now you have the Messiah in you, then as you walk in him, the closer you get. So you have that metaphorical representation, you getting closer to the Father. So as you do more, I don't want to say more works, but as you improve yourself in your spiritual walk, you're getting closer and closer to the Father, because then you got less and less sin. It says, now Jacob went to his uncle Laban, and he found a place and fell asleep there, laying his head on the stone. For the sun was set, and there he saw a vision. And lo, a ladder was set up on the earth, whose top reached unto the heaven. And the top of the ladder was a face as of a man, who out of fire. Now it had 12 steps on top of the ladder, and upon each step of the top were 2 human faces on the right and on the left. 24 faces seen to be their beast and the ladder, but the middle of the face was higher than them all, which I saw made of fire to the shoulder and the arm, very terrible, more than the 24 faces. And as I looked, behold, the angels of God ascending and descending therefore on. But the Lord was set above it, and he called me, saying, Jacob, Jacob. And I said, Here I am, Lord. And he said to me, The land where thou sleepest I will give to thee and to thy seed after thee, and I will multiply the seed as the stars of heaven, as the sand of the sea. Through the sea shall all the earth be blessed, and they that dwell thereon unto that last times, the years of the end. My blessing wherewith I have blessed thee shall pour out from there thee unto the last generation. All in the east and the west shall be full of thy seed. And when I heard it from above, fear and trembling fell upon me, and I rose up from my dream. And while the voice of God was yet in my ears, I said, Oh, dreadful is this place. This is the none of other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And I set up the stone, and that was under my head of a pillar, and poured oil on top of it, and I called the name of that place the house of God. So, and it says that, and it says just as a supplement, and I prayed to God and said, The Lord God of Adam of thy, and the Lord God of Abraham and Isaac my father, and all those of whose ways are right before thee, thou that sittest mighty upon the cherubim, and upon the throne of the majesty of fire, full of eyes. As I saw in my dream, that holds the cherubim with 4 faces, that bear the Sephrim, full of eyes, that bears the full world under his arm, and is born of none. Thou dost establish the heaven for thy glory, for thy name. Thus thou hast spread out upon the clouds of the heavens, and the heaven that flieth. Under thee, that under it thou mayest move the sun, and hide in it the night, lest in the beheld. For God, thou hast ordained the way for the moon and the stars, and thou markest to wax and wane. But for the stars, thou hast condemned them to pass over the last days, who shall be supposed gods before face of the majesty with the 6-winged Sephron, fear and hide their feet and their face with their wings, and with their others they fly and sing 2 lines. Go, now help, which omits all the invocation. Highest with the 12 faces, many named fury, lightning formed, Holy One, Holy One, Holy One. Jacob, Jehovah, Jehol, Sabakas, Chabad, Sabbath, Omelech, Alabar, Amen. And it says, Sabarek, eternal king, strong, mighty, very great, long suffering, blessed one. Thou fillest heaven and earth, and the sea and the abyss, and all eons with the glory. Hear my song wherewith I have praised thee, and grant my petition, for which I pray to thee, and show me the interpretation of my dream. For thou art strong and mighty and glorious as holy God, the Lord of me and my fathers. This rather resembles the prayer in the Apocalypse of Abraham, in which the translation is published in the series. And while I was set and spoke my prayers, there appeared a voice before my face, saying, Saraka, prince of them that rejoice, or of the servants, is also said. Thou that art of our visions, go make Jacob to understand the interpretation of the dream which he saw. Show him all the things whatsoever he saw. But first bless him. And he, archangel Sarkal, came to me, and I saw it. Was a face of a lion gone, terrible, but I did not fear before his look. For the face which I had seen him in the dream was more than this, and I feared not the face of an angel. And the angel said to me, What is thy name? And I said, Jacob. But I read, he said to me, Thy name shall not henceforth be called Jacob, but the name should be like my name, Israel. And when I came and from Fadam, this is also in the Apocalypse, Abraham in Syria, to meet my brother Esau, he came to me and blessed me and called my name Israel, and told me not his name until I adjured him, and then he told me. Because there is a confusion here. It seems between the two incidents of the ladder and the wrestling, I have wondered whether a dim reflection of the prayer of Joseph is to be traced in this paragraph. But the text is evidently a bad state, has merely the statement that an angel came and said he was sent to interpret the vision. But this said to me, the ladder which thou sawest, which had 12 steps, having 2 human face, which changed their appearance. Now this ladder is in this age, and the 12 steps are the times of this age, and the 24 faces are the kings of the lawless heathen of this age. Under these kings will be tried, thy children, and thy line, and thy sons. They will rise up against the lawlessness of thy descendants, and will lay this place waste through 4 descendants, because of the sins. Thy descendants and the substance of the forefathers will be built this place in the temple of thine, in the name of the God and thy fathers. The place of the temple is the name of the God of thy fathers. But through the wrath of thy descendants will be the desolate until the 4th descendant of this age. For thou didst see 4 visions of faces. The first thou stumblest upon the steps, angels ascending and descending, and the faces in the midst of the steps. The Most High will raise up of here in descendants of the brother Esau, and all the lords of the nations. Earth will accept it, who have done evil against thy seed, and will be given into the hands, and he will be hardly borne by them. But the beginneth of the roll with the violence and reign over them, and they cannot resist until the day when they decree goeth forth against them to serve the idols, and to all that appear in such a cause, and so many of thy race, so many Tarkagol. The first that stumbleth upon the steps will be a king of thy neighbors, and will do evil against thy seed. He will be unwilling born by them, but then beginneth he to rule over them, and with violence to reign over them, and they cannot resist him. And his decree groweth against them, and they should worship idols and sacrifice to the dead. And he speaketh to use force to all that are in this kingdom, which appear in such accusation, so many to the Most High out of thy race, and so many to Tokagargo. And now, Jacob, thy seed, be strangers in a strange land. Strange land, and will treat them with bondage, and lay blows of them daily. But the people whom they serve with the Lord judge, when a king erreth and fighteth, then will they be to that place. Then will thy seed, even Israel, go forth out of the bondage of the heathen who ruled over them with violence, and will be set free of all reproach of their enemies. For this king is the head of every revenge and retribution of them that make attacks on thee, Israel. And the end of the age for this miserable will rise and cry, and the Lord heareth them, and will be softened, and the mighty letteth himself pity their sufferings, because the angels and archangels pour out their prayers for saying of thy race. Then will their women bear much fruit, and then will the Lord fight for thy race. Here the oldest Mesorec text ends, and now thou Jacob, etc., to will the Lord judge, for the Most High will let himself pity. To the saving of the race, thou the Most High may have compassion. Then will their women bear much fruit, and the fight the Lord for thy race, and terrible and great signs for the bondage inflicted on them. Their full storehouses will be found by empty of wine. On every fruit their land will boil over with creeping things, and every deadly things. Earthquakes and much destructions will there be. Then will the Most High accomplish his judgment on that place, and will lead forth thy seed out of the bondage of the heathen, which rule over them with the violence, and they will be saved the reproaches of their enemies. But the head of the king will be revenged, bitterly standeth he upon against them. But the cry and the Lord heareth them, and poureth out his wrath upon the Leviathan, the sea of serpent, the smith of the lawless, Dalcon with the sword, against the God of gods. Raiseth he up in his pride, but then Jacob appeareth thy righteous, and thou that of the fathers, and of them that shall be after thee. Waketh at thy righteousness, and then shall thy seed blow with the trumpet, and the whole kingdom of the Edom shall perish, with all the kings and peoples of the Moabites. Of these sections seems to relate to the temple of the exile, more clearly to the Romans, certainly to the Egypt. What follows is Christian and is only in, but whereas thou sawest angels descending and ascending upon the ladder, and the last times there will be a man from the Most High, and he shall desire to join the upper with the lower. Of him before his coming shall your sons and daughters prophesy, and your young men shall see visions of him. For there shall be such signs as these at the time of the coming. A tree felled by the axe shall drop blood. We see that. Boys of 3 months old shall speak rationally. A child in his mother's womb shall proclaim his way. A young man shall be as an old man. And then cometh and that expected one, whose path will be perceived by no man. Then will the earth rejoice, because it have received the glory of the heaven. That which was above shall be below, and of thy seed shall grow up an royal root, or the root of a king. And he shall increase and destroy the power of the evil one. But he himself should be a savior of the heathen, and the rest of them that are weary, and a cloud which sitteth with the whole world from the heat. For otherwise that which is disordered could not be put in order. If he came not, otherwise that which is below could not be joined to what is above. Now at this coming will images of brass, or calves of brass, the stone, and all graven things utter their voice for 3 days long, and they announce to the wise men, and let them know what he will befalling on earth, and by the star will they know the way to him, when they see him upon the earth, what the angels see not above. Then will the Almighty be found in a body on earth, and encompassed by the arms of a mortal, and he reneweth the state of a man, and quicketh Adam and Eve that died through the fruit of the tree. Then will the deceit of the godless one by overcome all idols for all on their faces, for they will be put to shame by one who is adorned with honor, because they made lying inventions. Thenceforth will they have power to rule or to give prophecies, for their honor will be taken from them, and they will remain without glory. For he, the child that is come, taketh the power and might from them, and accomplish to Abraham the truth, righteousness, which he promised him. Then he, for his child, roundeth of all that is sharp, and every rough thing maketh he smooth, and he casteth of all unrighteousness into the depths of the sea, and he doeth wonders in the heaven and on earth. He will be the wonder wounded in the midst of the house and of the beloved, or beloved houses, evidently the houses of his friends, Zechariah, and we see that in Zechariah 13:6. But when he wounded them also, the saving and the end of all corruption draw near. For they that have wounded him shall themselves receive a wound which shall not be healed for them forever. But the wounded one shall all creatures worship, and upon him shall many hope, and everywhere and among all the Gentiles shall be known. But they that have known his name shall not be put to shame, and his own might and his years shall not fail forever. So if we look at this, another interpretation, is that is being mentioned here is that this is going to be like towards the end of time. And we see that, the Father came here before and he went back up, but he's going to be coming back down again and to take his people back up. And the people that are not following will be cast out into the sea. So that's kind of like, a judgment, the tribulation as we see here. And the Jacob's ladder is a ladder leading to heaven that was featured in a dream the biblical patriarch Jacob had during his flight from his brother Esau in the book of Genesis, is what we see. Now, this is something that I found. It's very interesting. It says, the ladder of Jacob has not survived as an integral text, even in the form of unsatisfactory as the Apocalypse of Abraham, but is known only from what was utilized in the Slavic or explanatory Palalia. In retelling the tales of the Old Testament, the Slavic editors of Palalia made many changes in the text they used. They rearranged the order of the sentence, the paragraph, and sections, and most important, they modified one wording in order to fit the text into the anti-Jewish commentary interspersed in the canonical and non-canonical episodes they were explaining. Moreover, they freely united heterogeneous materials, often with little consideration for narrative flow or logical connections. Therefore, we must treat the ladder of Jacob with the utmost caution. At best, our reconstitution of the text must be controversial in many details. For the moment, however, given to the lack of careful study of the manuscripts, witness, and the accessibility of many of them, we can give only a preliminary approximation that will serve as an introduction to that problem. So this is something that as I was coming across my study, and with where's it at? There we go. And with the Dead Sea Scrolls Bible here, I was researching, with Genesis 28, and of course our friendly Google, it's hard to find, and there's really not much, like literature. I don't want to say literature, but no true fragments left. So this was, something that was mentioned. As you can see, text was doctored, and if you have that King James Version Bible and you think that you have the true Bible, well, I'm telling you right now, your book was doctored, as you can see. So you might want to rethink which book you're reading from. The original Slavic version of the ladder was modified in slightly different ways by the two traditions in the history of the Pali text. Recension A is the more conservative, but is married by the omission of the condition text after 7 and 9. Recension was severely edited in a part of the narrative, while other passages appear to show harmonization with the commentary, but have been before 1 in 8 obvious insertions whose purpose is to elucidate the Septuagint version of Genesis 28:13. In recension, in B, the major portion of Jacob's count is in 2:3 through 5:1 is reduced to a banal prayer in the matter-of-fact appearance of nameless angels who start to explain the vision. Otherwise, recension B continues through the end of the chapter of 7. A, on the other hand, abruptly moves to the middle of 6 and 9 to the commentary that B flows 7 through 35. There is nothing to indicate that this omission was a real editorial decision. It is possible that other 3 copies go back to a model based on defective manuscripts. In any case, commentary jumps back to other brief and haphazard interpretations. And this is, and then much more detailed and discriminately organized exegesis in chapter 7. Chapter 7 is probably regarded as a separate work and is connected to the latter only by the names or the means of grammatical and incongruent sentences referring to the angels descending and ascending. Otherwise contains no edible references to Jacob. Modern scholars have regarded it as a part of the latter because the Palanion has it. With it is long commentary between the materials clearly connected with Jacob's vision as Bethel and his continued journey to Laban. The ladder of Jacob is elaboration of Jacob's dream at Bethel in Genesis 28 through 11:22, resting during his flight from Esau. Jacob sees in a dream ladder of staircase reaching from earth to heaven at the top of the fairy image and on the right and left of each. Okay, so we see that Jacob awakens, concentrates in the place, and utters a long prayer. Unfortunately, somewhat garbled and possibly shortened in the transmission of the text, asking God of the interpretation of the dream. God orders the archangel Sariel to bless Jacob and explains the dream. Sariel prayers to Jacob and changes his name to Israel. An obscure passage may have offered an interpretation of Sariel's name. There may well be a substitutional omission here. Sariel says the ladder of the staircase is the age of the 12 steps, are the periods of the age, the faces of the busts of the king and godless of the Gentiles who were tried Jacob's descendants. The iniquity of these descendants will bring retribution. Unfortunately, the text is too corrupt to allow any clear definition of. So, as you can see, the text has been so doctorated so bad that it's hard to really decide, because when they found this text itself, it was in pieces. So they tried to piece it back together, and trying to piece something back together, you might not have the true word. So with that, something, when you come across this, you want to make sure, as you read it, what was the real count that was happening and what's the true meaning behind this. The theological importance says belief of one God, emphasized in the ladder of Jacob. God is Lord of the world. He is the one who's carrying the world under his arm, yet not being borne by anyone. He made the sky, set the order of the movements for the sun, the moon, and the stars, and fills the heaven and earth, the seas and abyss, and all the ages with this glory. Yet it is not clear that Jewish monotheism is emphasized in the latter. The existence of other gods is not denied, and often it seems that the God of Adam and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the God of gods. You are a God who is mighty, powerful, and glorious, a God who is holy, my Lord and Lord of my fathers. Likewise, thoroughly, monotheism seems to the foreign to the latter, since Falcon raises the wrath of God of gods by his pride. Angels, of course, play a prominent role in the latter. They ascend and descend, which is the characteristics of traditions related to Jacob. Elsewhere, the emphasis is upon the angels descend and then ascending. The archangel Sariel, who is also mentioned in the Qumran scrolls, Aramaic and Enoch, and the Nufta Targum, is said to be the one who is in charge of the dreams. Hence, he is the one who is dispatched to Jacob in order to explain to him the meaning of his dreams. So we got the ladder of the descent. The ladder of divine ascent, or ladder of paradise, is an important essential treatise of monotheism and Eastern Christian, written by John Climacus in 600 AD at the request of John Abdab. Okay, and it says, the scholar which obtained an immense popularity has made its author famous in the church, is addressed in the Archelites and the Cenobites, and treats of the means by which the highest degree of religious perfection may be attained, divided into 30 parts or steps, in a memory of the 30th years of the life of the Christ, the divine model in the religious. If presents a picture of all the virtues and contains a great many parables and historical touches, a drawn principle from the Mosaic life, and the exhibiting practical application of the precepts. At the same time as the work is mostly written in a concise sententious form, with the aid of apophorism, and the reasonings are not sufficiently closely connected, is also at times somewhat obscured. This explains his having been subject of various commentaries even in very early times. The most ancient of the ancient manuscripts containing the Scala is found in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. It was probably brought from Florence by Catherine de Medici. In some of these manuscripts, the work bears a title of Spiritual Tables. So this is just another image of what we see, as believers, in the Messiah. As you can see in the picture here, we start to climb as we get closer. As we get closer, we're climbing towards God. And as we start to go up, of course, you see who's pulling you down. You've got, the demons that will pull you down. Satan's going to have his demons. They're going to keep pulling you. And as you start to go up and up, you should be walking closer and closer towards God. So the less likely you shall fall. But there are even some who even get towards the top, even fall down. So as you go up, you definitely want to be careful as you go up, because the more chances you could fall. Now these are from here we got the 30 steps, is what it says. Okay, this was very interesting, I thought, and it says 1 through 4 is called the renunciation of the world and obedience to the spiritual father. So basically this means we die to flesh and we live in him. So as you die to flesh every day, you're renouncing of this world. So if you're not of this world, you've been transformed, so this is what we see. So you're already being renunciation of the world, and then we have a detachment, and then you get exiled, okay, and then you become blessed and ever memorable obedience. And then once you get to step 5 through 7, these are the paths to true joy. This is when you start to really, as you're getting closer to him, you start, remember, you're starting to follow the Torah, you're starting to follow his ways, so you're starting to be more like the Messiah. And as you start to be more like him, you're going to start less sinning, and you should, as you can see, as we go through these, this is, like I said, these are the steps to the righteousness, to be like him. So in step 5, it says painstaking and true repentance. So this is when you actually really truly repented, which constitutes the life of a holy convict and about the prison. And it says on the rebranch of death, and then it's got on joy making and mourning. So, no matter what you're going through, you're always happy. You're giving him the praise and glory every time you're going through something. Okay, then we got 8 through 17, which is the defeat of vices, acquisitions of virtue. So that means you're dying to your flesh. The freedom from anger and meekness. The remembrance of wrongs, slander or calamity. Talkativeness and silence or lying. Despondency, and that clamorous mistress, the stomach. Incorruptible, purity and chastity, to which the corruptible attain by toil and sweet. Love of money, avarice. The non-positiveness and the haste that hastens in heaven's words. And at 18 through 26, it says, these are the voids of the traps of acceptism, laziness, pride, mental stagnation. So this is where some of, people who become, followers of God, and they said they want to become, followers of God, and they say they're a Christian, but then they get that mental stagnation because they get to the point where they're like, oh, okay, I've been saved, that's it. No. As you can see, the 30 steps, this is going to take you to closer to God. So don't stop here, is basically what you're learning. So it says you want to avoid these. On the insensibility, that is deadening of the soul and the death of the mind before the death of the body. On sleep, prayer, and psalmody with the brotherhood. So you're not praying for others. The bodily vigil and how to use it to attain spiritual vigil and how to practice it. So that means memory prayer. In unmanly and purely cowardice, on the many forms of vainglory, and it says on the mad pride in the same step of unclean and blemished thoughts. So you're always having pure thoughts. And concerning unmentionable blemished thoughts. Remember, pure thoughts. Unmeekness, simplicity, and gloominess, which come not from the nature, but from conscience, effort, and gloom. On the destroyer of passions, most sublime humility, which is rooted in spiritual perception. On discernment, on the thoughts of passion and virtues. An expert discernment, brief summary of the aforementioned. Okay, and then in 27 through 29, okay, if you make it this far, it says acquisitions of peace of the soul, of the prayer of the apatheia, dispassion of equality with the respect to affliction of suffering, the holy stillness of the body and soul, different aspects of stillness and how to distinguish them, on holy and blessed prayer and mother of virtues, and on the attitude of mind and body and prayer, concerning heaven on earth, godlike dispassion and perfection and resurrection of the soul before the general resurrection. And in step 30, concerning the linking together the supreme trinity among the virtues of a brief exhortation summarizing all that has said at the length of this book. So, as you can see, the 30 steps are going to bring you closer to God. Well, with this here, the Jacob's ladder is actually found here in Torah portion of week 7, which is starts in Genesis 28:10 and goes through Genesis 32:3. Excuse me. And it says Vayetz, and it says he went out. Okay, this is a marvelous Torah portion before us, details Jacob's journey on faithful with God and God faithfulness to his promise and covenant with Abraham. It also portrays the wonderful prophetic vision which clearly points us to the Messiah. We will focus on Jacob's first dream, which is often referred to as Jacob's ladder or stairway to heaven, the original one. Let's read Genesis 28 through 12:17. Okay, it says many interesting interpretations are suggested for the prophetic meaning of the ladder. A theme that permits earlier Jewish thought is that the ladder is a form of communication between the heavens and God's Shalom glory himself and humanity. Most ancient Jewish commentaries understood the ladder as representing the tabernacle or the temple, which through the sacrifice of the priesthood connects fallen humans to the holy God. Interesting is the Gospel of John, chapter 1. A true Israelite nationality, or Nathanael, comes to seek Messiah. To Nathanael, sincere, seeking Yeshua, said, Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven open and the angels God ascending and descending to the Son of Man. That is John 1:51. An emphasis added. Yeshua's words were make a clear connection to Jacob's ladder. So Yeshua responds clearly to affirms the general Jewish understanding of Jacob's ladder. Intended is a symbolizing a connection between heaven and earth, but it does not merely point to the tabernacle or temple. Yeshua said it points to him. He is the ladder connection and the meeting point between the holy God and the fallen humans. The Messiah is the one who descended from heaven, took to the form of flesh, and sacrificed himself for our sins. He is the one who also rose from the dead and is now at the right hand of the Father as our high priest, thus ascending to heaven. Yeshua is the fulfillment of Jacob's ladder. Indeed, he is the heart and meaning of all the Torah. That is why he said, if you believe Moses, you would believe me. This is in John 5:46. So this is something that, as you can see here, that was mentioned. This is very, very interesting. This is the foreshadow, of the Messiah. He descended, he gave his life for you, and then he reascended. And now he's at the right hand of the Father. So this was the actual dream that, that Jacob received, was actually the Messiah. So to recap, what was Jacob's ladder? Well, was it a physical ladder or was it just a dream? And as you can see, this was a foreshadow, a prophetic vision that was given to Jacob, showing the what was going to happen, that the Messiah was going to come down, and he's the only way to get up to heaven. And it was a connection between, the heaven and the earth for, the humans to become back up to the Father. Another point is the 30 stairs. This is also mentioned, that this is how, you get closer and closer as you're going up. The more spiritual you get, the more righteousness you become. So as you're following his instructions, that's what the Torah, his laws are. They're instructions. The Torah itself, this gives you the instructions how to live your life. So if you're living your life, you're getting closer to him. So these are the 30 steps that will take you closer to him. And if we look in John 1:51, he saith unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter ye shall see heaven and open up the angels of God, ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. So when you receive that revelation, him coming to you because you have followed his instructions, he has descended upon you. And as you ascend and get closer to him, you've started climbing those 30 stairs. And it's not just the physical stairs, but as you can see, these are the points that will take you closer and closer to God, and from glory to glory. And if you're not in that step right now, I do pray that you're getting closer to him, and that you're following his instructions. And each year you should, and each Moedim, each feast appointment, you should sit there and look at and reevaluate your life and see, have you gotten closer and closer to the Messiah? If you're not getting closer and closer to the Messiah, then what you need to do is you need to prune, before the Father starts to prune you. So that way you can get closer to him. And as you can see, these 30 points that were pointed out, they're all very good things, that will get you closer to the Father. And, it's not just doing it just so you can do it. No, you do it out of love. He said, if you love me, then you will do these things. So if you really love him, you would do these things. So with that being said, as you can see, this is what the actual Jacob's ladder was and what it meant. So with that, hopefully you guys enjoy tonight's teaching on Jacob's ladder, and maybe you've learned something that that you can even teach me. My eyes are open, and I'm willing to hear and listen. So if you have a comment, please make sure you comment below. And if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe now, and make sure you click on that notification so that way you can receive that notification when I come live again. With that being said, hopefully you guys have a great Shabbat, and shalom to each and one of you tonight, and may you be blessed. As we leave, I'd like to pray for each one of you now. Our Father, we thank you for this word. We give you all the honor and glory. We thank you for opening up our eyes and allow us to see you, Father. And, with that being said, one thing that, you showed us at the end, Father, which was not mentioned, Father, but something that was shown towards me towards the end. And this is a reference in Psalms to Psalms 121. And we notice that in Psalms 121, he says, keep 6 times. The conventional benediction of number 6:24 through 26 is also linking in Jacob's distress, which the Lord bless you and keep you. The angels have not been mentioned since verse 12, but this is something that's worth mentioning. In Psalms 91:11 through 15, and I'm going to read it here, it says, for he will give his angels charge of you to guard you in all your ways, because he cleaves to me in love. I will deliver him. I will protect him, because he knows my name. And when he calls to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. So as you can see, it's being used here. Now, with that, hopefully you guys had a great Shabbat Shalom to you. And if you feel like you need prayer tonight, make sure you send an email to followersofyahweh@gmail.com. And I also like to give a shout out to my other counterparts out there, Justin Best at Christian Truthers, and also we got the Parable Vineyard, Adam, and then we also have Sister Shalom. If you do not have a house or a congregation or fellowship, go ahead and contact me, and I will try to get you linked up with somebody, hopefully that's in your area. If not, we can always fellowship here. With that being said, may you guys be blessed, and I hope to see you. And I say hope is because my days are numbered, and I do not know when the Father says he will come and tell me to come home. So with that being said, may you guys be blessed, and I will see you next Shabbat, which is next week. Shabbat Shalom, my brothers and sisters.